Good morning, Bucknutters. It is Thursday, October 5th, 2023. I am Dan Rubin. This is the Bucknuts Morning 5 and Change. Kind of playing hurt today with a scratchy voice. My son plays on the varsity soccer team. It's even more embarrassing if I let you know how I injured myself as a fan. But first, we will have Mark Porter and Bill Kurelic up here in a minute. There's a lot of actual real recruiting news to talk about. Excuse me. But first, our sponsor today, AG1. When do you drink your AG1? For me, it's in the morning. What effects has it felt on my body? I feel great. It's a foundational nutrition supplement that delivers comprehensive nutrients to support whole body health. AG1 is raising the standard for quality in the supplement category. It replaces your multivitamin, probiotic, more in one simple, drinkable habit, creating a manageable daily habit. All great athletes have one thing in common. They take care of their bodies, and a huge part of that starts with optimizing whole body health. AG1 is raising the standard for quality in the supplement category. If a comprehensive solution is what you need for your supplement routine, then try AG1 and get a free one-year supply of vitamin D and 5 free AG1 travel packs with your first purchase. Go to drinkag1.com/Bucknuts. That's drinkag1.com/Bucknuts. Check it out, and you can see it runs on the scroll there. Take advantage. Joining us, the Dean, Bill Kurelic, Mark Porter. Sometimes there's no content for us, and we have to drum up stuff. This is not one of those days. Several names bubbling up on the recruiting radar. We're going to start with Akron Hoban linebacker Eli Lee, class of 2025. He was offered. Bill rolled the crystal ball. Bill, you can let us know about the whole shebang. That's kind of a stem to stern offer to crystal ball. Might even be a record. And then Mark, given he's from Ohio, you can lay out the scouting report on Mr. Lee. Bill, the floor is yours.
Yeah, Eli Lee is a 6'3", 215-pound linebacker at Hoban. He's a class of 2025. Had a really good sophomore season. I know he was over 100 tackles, and I believe he was a double-digit sack guy. He is an inside interior linebacker, middle. He did get the offer from Ohio State. He talked via FaceTime with James Laurinaitis, then with Jim Knowles, and then Eli's parents got on the FaceTime call. And to say the least, Eli was pretty excited about the offer. As he put it to me, he's been an Ohio State fan since he was born. Sure. So with that in mind, and with Ohio State offering, and if you watch his videotape, it's pretty darn good. I did go ahead and crystal ball him to Ohio State. I don't anticipate a real quick decision on his part. He wants to let things play out a little bit. I just think, though, that after he lets things play out, that Ohio State's got a great chance to have Eli linebacker in their class. His other offers right now, it's early. So his other offers, Iowa State, for instance, is one of them. UMass, Toledo, Akron have all offered him. But West Virginia, shouldn't forget them. They've offered as well. But I think, as is often the case, when Ohio State offers, more are going to come. And kind of interesting, real quick, Leroy Roker, the safety that Ohio State offered earlier this week, I talked to him right away, too. As I did Eli Lee right after the offer came. And I was telling Leroy that, Leroy, with Ohio State getting in the offer to you, I think it'd be really fair to expect more offers to come. And lo and behold, Miami Hurricanes quickly offered Leroy Roker too. Eli is going to get the same type deal. I think his offers are going to be rolling in now.
Chad Stryker feels like Lee is about to blow up, as does Bill. Do you feel the same?
Is that me?
That is you.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly what's going to happen. And we talked about this a few weeks ago. Mark Pantoni has a staff where they can evaluate more tape faster than everybody else. And this is a classic example of that, where they were out looking at tape in Ohio of all the best players, and they got through their evaluations, and this evaluation was a better evaluation than the sophomore tape. If you read the message boards, the fans are throwing out the names A.J. Hawk and Eichenberg, and yeah, that's the ballpark we're playing in. And, you know, Ohio State has a type at certain positions. Brian Hartline has a type that he likes to offer at receiver. The quarterbacks, all kind of the same type. Your middle linebackers are coming from that same mold of the A.J. Hawk, Laurinaitis, Eichenberg type linebackers, where if you watch his tape, there's no steps backwards. It's all downhill. It's all between the tackles. It's all leading with the head and shoulder pads for knockdown, drop down tackles. It's a very physical type of play. It's a lot of the dirty work where you're shedding guards and ripping through tackles and running around blocks and beating blocks in the backfield. But I think you're getting a sure tackler and a guy who's going to do yeoman's work in the middle. And it might not be flashy. It might not be, something that we're like, oh, we're all excited about him like we were Sonny Styles. But C gap to C gap, you need football players that are tough, hard-nosed kids, and he fits that mold.
He's also on a team that will have several other guys Ohio State is in the mix for going forward. So I'm not saying they took Eli Lee to get the next guys, but it doesn't hurt to get a little pipeline action going at Hoban, given how well they've played and how much talent they got in the younger classes. Another guy that has been crystal balled to Ohio State that we've talked about recently, Carter Lowe, the Toledo Whitmer offensive lineman. Mark, you saw him this past weekend. Bill, you rolled the crystal ball a few days ago. Bring us up to speed.
I guess since we're talking crystal balls, I'll go back to the summer, and when I watched the Whitmer private college workout, the buzz among staff at Whitmer and other people following was, hey, this guy's Ohio State. It's pretty much a done deal. You can, consider him done. Well, nothing happened. And when I go back up there last week, you get that same buzz on the sidelines. There's an assistant coach there. It says, don't worry about it. We got this one locked up to Ohio State. It's not a Michigan thing and blah, blah, blah. So I think the vibes out of there have been consistent and strong, and they're not afraid to tell you where his lean is. So I think with that being said, Bill may have put the final exclamation point on it, but I felt pretty comfortable. And I don't even get into the crystal balls and where guys are leaning, but a lot of people felt freely enough to speak to me and say, hey, this is an Ohio State kid. It's just a matter of time.
Before we go to Bill, scouting report.
Okay. Big, massive, long wingspan. I think I told you on the podcast Tuesday, we got 2 great pancakes out of him, and then he played backside a hinge. And so, but that doesn't bother me because I've seen him in his real domain doing his real thing, and I'm not worried about a night where the other team ran away from him. But he's going to be a run blocker first. He has that power in the phone booth to root you out of there and kind of use pure brute strength to take you off the line. But in pass protection, we had clips of him this summer where you could see how his feet are. In fact, they made it a point in his summer workout to show him kick stepping and sliding and that type of movement to show you the big guy dancing around back there like a dancing bear. So you have one of your typical Ohio State offers. Again, there's a type, and this is the type that we typically see at Ohio State, over 6'5", the wingspan, feet, bully type strength. But yeah, really liked him, and I wish we could have seen him more front side so I could have provided you more highlights, but I've never seen the Deion Sanders treatment given to an offensive tackle, so that ought to tell you what Perrysburg thought of him.
Do you see him as a tackle, right, left?
Yeah, I see him as a right tackle right now, although he could get out there on the left side. I don't know, based on, what they're going to do with him, but he's left tackle now, but they had him at tight end, right tackle. They basically moved him all over the place. Whitmer did to use him at the point of attack. But left tackle, I think you could start him off there and see how it goes, but he's such a great run blocker. I mean, he's really thick in the legs, thick in the butt. It looks like he's built to move guys in space.
Bill, why roll the crystal ball now?
One thing I want to add to that, Ohio State, the way they've recruited recently on the offensive line, they haven't pigeonholed guys into exact positions too often, like left, right, left guard, whatever. they've often actually said, we're going to bring you in here and we think you could play just about any position and we'll fit you in where we need and where you're best fit at. But in the case of Lowe, they have mentioned specifically left tackle with him. Now, they haven't said you are absolutely left tackle, but they have mentioned that to him, that we can see you as a left tackle at Ohio State. And I think he likes that. He, like Mark said, he's a left tackle. When I saw him earlier this season, actually, I saw him the first game of the season. He played the entire game at left tackle. So, I think he could play right tackle. I think he can play left tackle, but Ohio State is mentioning left tackle to him. Now, as far as the crystal ball, I think, I've been thinking about that for a long time. And basically, I met his parents this summer, and I think they like Ohio State a lot too. I know he likes Ohio State a lot too. I know he's wanted to take visits. He went down, he's been to some of the schools in the South. He went to the Texas-Alabama game. He's wanted to take visits and all. I just wanted to make sure that once he took those visits, I didn't get any different vibe on him. And I don't get it. I talked to him again this week, got no different vibe at all. So I went ahead and made that crystal ball pick.
As the Oracle says, 85% of Toledo loves Ohio State. And you have the people who live on the waterfront and can see across to the evil land of Michigan. It was not the only recruiting news of the week. We actually have to double back to the class of 2024 for the offer to the aforementioned Leroy Roker, safety out of Fort Myers Bishop Verot High School. We think it's called that. Kind of surprising, Bill. And as you mentioned when you let me know, he's a little bit of an unknown prospect when it comes to the big boys. Ohio State is really the first huge program to offer. Miami followed. However, Iowa has also offered, and not only did I see you report that he was offered by Ohio State, I saw Steve Wiltfong roll a crystal ball to Iowa, and then I saw that Roker was visiting Ohio State this weekend. Can you provide any clarity on Leroy, don't call me Al Roker?
Well, he did get that Iowa offer earlier, and he did make an official visit there last weekend, and it went well. Ohio State, Perry Eliano stopped at his school during the bye week and watched him practice, and then the Buckeyes offered him a scholarship. I think without that Ohio State offer and without the Miami offer, I think that Roker was headed to Iowa. I would have been pretty surprised if that's not where he picked. But I think now that the Buckeyes got in, and Miami for that matter, I think it's a whole new ballgame now. And I think not only Steve Wiltfong, but our Iowa guy, Sean Buck, they had crystal balled him to Iowa, I believe, prior to Ohio State and Miami offering. So I think it's a whole new ballgame now. I think we'll see how it goes this weekend. He is, as I reported right after the offer came, he's going to make an official visit to Ohio State this weekend. They get these guys on campus, and if they push for him, I think it's going to make things a little bit tough on Iowa, would be my opinion right now. But we'll see what happens. Then I think you've got the added thing of, does he go ahead and make an official visit to Miami since they followed up the Ohio State offer? We don't know that yet for sure because he hasn't even taken the Ohio State visit yet. So a lot's hinging on this weekend and him making the official visit to Ohio State and then trying to figure out if he wants to go ahead and pursue that Miami offer as well.
We've got a bunch of other good stuff to get to, but I've got to also let you know about our second sponsor. You can see, those you watching can see it on the ticker. It is Jonathan Green Black Beauty Grass Seed, naturally dark green in color, has roots that can grow up to 4 feet deep, and is super drought tolerant. With over 130 years of experience, Jonathan Green is a name you can trust for quality lawn care. And here's the best part, Buckeyes fans. They're offering you 10% off your order. JonathanGreen.com. Head over there now. Use the code Bucknuts10 at checkout for 10% off. Within just a few weeks, you'll see thick, lush green grass at the envy of your neighborhood. My voice. Say goodbye to bare spots and hello to a lawn at the talk of the town. Visit jonathangreen.com and use coupon code Bucknuts10 to get 10% off your order of grass seed, lawn fertilizer, weed controls, and more. I am going to actually embarrass myself as you hear my voice. My son plays soccer. He actually scored a goal the other night, and as I exulted, I thought I tore my Achilles, and I'm not kidding. I almost passed out, and I had to have the trainer in her golf cart come over and wrap my leg in ice, and it was nearly the most embarrassing thing of my life. Getting old is not fun. I'm just telling people that. I shan't be recruited by any big time programs anytime soon. All right, gentlemen. This weekend, you guys are getting back out on the road. Who will you be going to see and why? Marcus, take the floor.
Well, I'm trying to decide if I want to see Pickerington Central and Pickerington North, or if I'm going to make another trip to Cincinnati because Moeller and St. Ignatius are playing on Saturday. So it's kind of one of those, if I'm going to go to Cincinnati, I'm going to go for the weekend. If I'm going to go to Columbus, I'm just going to go for the night. I'm working on a video right now where we're going to release it later today where you're going to get a look at Justin Hill, Luca Gilbert, a lot of players that, you might not be talking about a little farther down the trough. And then as soon as we get done with that video, we're going to work on one with Eli Lee in it and some of the guys I saw Hoban a week ago. And little did you know, you were watching a future Ohio State Eli Lee. And I know people are asking about Peyton Cook, if he's going to get offered. And we'll try to do all those guys justice as we get, to the next breakdown. But the playoffs, Pickerington Central and Pickerington North is looking pretty good. So I don't know if I want to go see them right away, but I want to get Sam Williams-Dixon where I can get some highlights.
Was there a Sam Greer sighting at Hoban?
Not yet. That was a Saturday where he has not been back yet. And I was just saying the footage I'm still breaking down from that game. But I know Bill's going to see him, I think, next week. And I'm hoping he's back. But I will see Hoban again in the playoffs.
Okay, great. William?
Yeah, I'll see Hoban actually in a couple weeks from now. Next week, I'm going to go see Tavian St. Clair as Bell Fountain travels to Plain City, Jonathan Alder, and that should be a good game. Jonathan Alder has a good team. So next week I'll be traveling to that game, and then the following week, October 20th, as I was talking to Eli Lee last night, I'm going to go to the Lakewood St. Edwards at Akron Hoban game, October 20th. And as I was talking to Eli Lee, I just might end up being there till 2 a.m. interviewing guys after the game. There's so many guys to interview. You've got Ohio State scholarship offers on the Hoban side to Sam Greer, Albert Hill, and now Eli Lee, all from the class of 2026 at Hoban. So certainly I want to interview all those guys. You've got the Armstrong twins at St. Edwards who have committed to Ohio State. So that's at least 5 guys right there that are either Ohio State commitments or Ohio State offers at this point. You got Peyton Cook, who I like a lot. And, I might pitch a tent and just stay there all night long at that game. But this weekend, this weekend I'm headed south as of now, at least. I'm going down to Cincinnati and what should be a really good game. Winton Woods is 6-1, and they are hosting a Milford team that's 7-0. Winton Woods, as Mark talked about, has Justin Hill, the linebacker that Ohio State's offered. And I'll be interested to see Isaiah Garrett, too, the 2027 running back at Winton Woods. So provided everybody is healthy, and as Mark and I have talked about, we always check Wednesday, Thursday, just to make sure the guys we're going to see are healthy and playing. Doesn't always work out, Dorian Brew type situation where Mark went down to see that one and Dorian wasn't playing. But providing everybody is as playing as expected, I'll be going to the Winton Woods hosting Milford game this Friday, tomorrow.
Bill, funny you should raise the name Dorian Brew. Dorian Brew, I think Nate Beam is referring to here, the Northmont DB. He is now actually the Conroe DB, Conroe, Texas. He moved back to Texas. He actually matriculated to Clayton from the Houston area in middle school or junior high school, depending on where you're from. Back to his dad, who's the sprint coach at Conroe. Bill, any update on the former Ohioan who was the top-rated player in Ohio, I might add? Any thoughts on his recruitment, or are we just kind of waiting for the end of the year here now?
Well, he is supposed to play in his first game this weekend for Conroe. He had to sit out the 14 days that Texas High School Athletic Association rules say. He had to sit out the 14 days. So that did not make him eligible to play until this weekend. So he should get on the field for the first time for Conroe. Tim Walton wasted no time. He was there at Conroe right away during Ohio State's bye week. That was one of his very first stops to check in with Dorian Brew. Dorian Brew absolutely is still considering Ohio State. His dad, as you mentioned, Dan, is in the Conroe system. He is a sprint coach for the football team and track coach and all. His mom is an Ohio State legacy. She is up here in Ohio. But he is absolutely still considering Ohio State very highly, I might add. But it's not over by any means. You know, now the Texas schools are going to feel like they have a better chance than ever to land him. Certainly, Notre Dame has worked hard to land Dorian Brew, so we'll see what happens. It's not going to be a situation I don't see him making any decision anytime really quickly.
All right.
You know what? You brought up a couple programs' names. We talked about Northmont, and yeah, I didn't get to see our guy Brew, but let's start talking about Cedric Works. He's one of the featured guys on this breakdown that's coming out today. He's going to remind you of C.J. Hicks. He's going to look like Justin Hill. He's a stand-up guy, 6'5" linebacker that he puts his face mask on a few people, and wasn't a wasted trip for me. He is definitely one of the top players in this class, and we're not talking. If Ohio State offered him instead of Eli Lee, I would not have been shocked. And so when you see his film, I want people to get excited about him. And then over at Wentwood's, Domneil Rogers is a corner that has a Michigan offer. He's light in the pants, maybe 150, 160, but Ryan Nichols was like that a year ago, and some of these other corners are light earlier in their career. He looked pretty good as I broke down a tape. He's flying around. They have him playing safety, so he may be a guy that's on Buckeye radar. And you mentioned Isaiah Zeke Garrett. That is the freshman running back for Woods. Unfortunately, when I saw him, Anderson did a good job for shutting him down. My initial impressions of him are he is much smaller than I thought he was. On 8th grade film, he looked like Adrian Peterson compared to the kids on the field. On a high school field, he's more normal. He is going to be a very good one, but he's more of a scat back. I bet you he's only about 180 pounds right now. Has a lot of jitter. I checked out some other film of him, and it looks pretty good. And the other name we brought up, Peyton Cook at Hoban. You know, checking out some film on him. I don't know if he has a signature game underneath his belt. I only looked at 3 or 4 game films. He had like 4 slants in one game, a lot of short catches, some pulverizing blocks. That probably was the thing that stood out to me the most with him so far, is he peeled back on some guys and sprung some people. So people have asked about this. When's the Peyton Cook offer coming? Maybe after the signature big game he has, because right now they've rolled on some teams and they've used him, but more of a possession guy, not as a splash, electric player that, you know, maybe Ohio State would offer as a receiver.
I've told you guys this before, but my son played fall league hoops with Cedric, I think in the 9th grade. And he was a bone china shop, man. Pigeon-toed at the time, and just dudes bounced off of him. Wasn't necessarily a hooper, but I'm not surprised. Thick kid.
I'll add, too, that I got to see Isaiah Garrett. Mark mentioned he's a smaller guy. You know, he's not a power back or whatever. Back in the spring when they were doing the 7-on-7s, I went down to a huge 7-on-7 event down in Cincinnati, and Winton Woods was playing in it. Isaiah Garrett at that time was, you know, he was suiting up with the varsity and all and playing with them. And of course, 7-on-7s, they're in shorts and helmets. So, you know, I got to see him firsthand without equipment on, and he is a smaller guy. but he is really fast and he has got great moves. And boy, he's a well-known guy down in the Cincinnati area as a potential future star.
Yeah, I don't mean that as a knock. He's a smaller guy. I'm just, when you see him a year ago and all you have is 8th grade tape, he looked like he was a monster on that 8th grade tape. And then that's pretty typical of someone, but to be dressing with varsity and playing varsity, that speaks volumes. But he's not the back I guess I expected. Now, will he grow into, a 6'2" back? Probably not. He's going to be one of those guys that's electric.
One name that's come up a lot is Dorian Nichols, Chad Stryker, obviously one of our best. He's kind of does a good job of weaving it all together here for you, Bill. Is that offer to Florida safety Leroy Roker a just-in-case offer if we can't pull Dorian Nichols away from Kentucky?
Well, I don't look at it that way at this point, but I will say that, again, I checked on Dorian Nichols not very long ago, just a number of days ago. Don't remember exactly what day. I checked on his status, and, he really hasn't moved a lot as far as his commitment to Kentucky. It's not like seems like he is on the verge of backing off. Now, you never know, but I still think there's a decent chance that he'll get up to Ohio State for a visit, possible official visit. But like I said, he hasn't moved a lot off that Kentucky offer, and Kentucky's looking pretty good. I mean, they rolled Florida last weekend, and they're playing Georgia this weekend. I think that's going to be an interesting game to see what happens. I'm actually pretty interested to see how Kentucky does against Georgia. So, I don't think it's any guarantee whatsoever that he's going to move off that Kentucky offer. Maybe he does, but far from a sure thing. And the Roker kid, I think that if they really like what they see of him again in person this weekend and everything goes well, and I could see them pushing for him. It wouldn't shock me at all.
I should digress and mention that Kentucky also got the very interested in Youngstown, Brian Robinson. Everyone up here was paying close attention to that for the Youngstown ties. So that saga has now come to an end. So another feather for Kentucky. Yeah. I mean, and I think they're trying to use the Lynn Bowden game plan with Brian Robinson. Bring the kid from Youngstown that needs someone to put their arms around him and bring him into the family. And it paid off with Lynn Bowden, who was just activated on the Saints roster. I mean, he's been bouncing around forever. So, there's a little more of a digression, not Ohio State related, but I know that's a name that we followed on this podcast.
Lest we forget, Lynn Bowden took a detour through Bloomington to Lexington. So
and from the Patriots to the Dolphins to another team to the Saints. He's a well-known person around the NFL now.
Hey, as long as those checks clear. There's been a lot of questions on here about Justin Hill, so I'm just going to throw one up here, and you guys can break it down. And Mark, you can kind of tease what you got coming. 4.38 for a linebacker, ladies and gentlemen. I just want to tell everybody this: a legit 4.38. If you run a legit 4.38, you're almost fast enough to run for the United States 4x1 team. That's how fast 4.38 is. Go ahead.
What I have on film this week isn't saying 4.38. Now, he's fast, and we love him because he's fast at his size. But kids sometimes will use, how sometimes you run 40s at the end of practice and 3 or 4 coaches are timing you and someone yells out of time, and that'll be your time forever because it's the best one you've ever heard. That sounds like what's going on there. A hand time, you can add 2/10 to, okay? And let's just, track coaches will verify that. So maybe he ran a 4.38, which is 4.48, 4.58, which is a 4.6, which is really probably what he is, a 4.6. And that is a true legitimate 4.6 at the NFL Combine at his size is a first, second round draft pick. Okay. So it's not a knock that we're debating his 4.38 and, saying it may and questioning. I don't want to even question. I don't even like questioning kids when they do this, because I'm sure a coach clocked him at that and said that's what the time was. But I wouldn't put that up against other legitimate 4.38s, like Dan's saying, because it's almost, I don't know if there's too many humans who have ever been that big. Like that's Bo Jackson area, 6'3", 220, 4'3", 4'29", 4'19", whatever the heck he was. that's the greatest athlete of all time stuff. So yeah, you hope he commits to Ohio State if he does.
Garrett Wilson is about a 4.38, 4.40 guy.
Yeah.
And same with Olave.
Justin Hill's not getting into coverage with Garrett Wilson. Okay.
And when I saw that question,
knock on the guy. Go ahead.
When I saw that question, I thought, well, not laser timed, maybe hand timed, and there's a big difference in those two. Huge difference.
Yeah, I know a coach at the end of practice that would have their kids run 37-yard 40s.
Oh, so funny you say that.
Yep, and he'd yell out the times. Yeah, and the kids, would all buy, and we kind of questioned, like, Coach, what are you doing? He's like, think fast, play fast.
Right.
It was just hey, they believe they're faster. They think they're faster. It's a mental approach, but they also go around repeating these things, and yeah.
We used to have a guy. There was a team that I used to cover, a legit high school team in the Northern Virginia area that literally dealt with Division I coaches routinely. So he didn't want to put out fake numbers. So he would not tell you what their real numbers were. But when you tell them, like, oh, the opposition has a guy that runs he would say back to you every time, 38, meaning he knows you. That's a 38-yard time. That's not a 40-yard time. So literally, if you see someone running a 4.38, they could literally be the anchor on your 4x1 team at your high school and be all state.
And you know what? It's at the size he's at. If he was a 155-pound kid that ran that, that's who usually pulls that off. Not someone 70 pounds heavier. It's really rare that guys that big can do that. Now it happens, and if he does do that, let's get him in the fold. Let's bring him to Ohio State now, and immediately, but he is lightning fast. Just that must be, like Bill said, that's a hand time.
If he ran a laser time hold on a second. If he ran a laser time 4.38 at that size with how good he is, Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State, Notre Dame, they would set up camp outside his high school and not leave till he committed.
The Browns and Bengals would be sitting outside of his house. He'd get drafted next year. Just skip
Just for anybody that doesn't know, we were talking about at his size. Justin Hill is a 6'3.5" to 6'4", 215 to 220 pound linebacker. So we're not talking about a 5'11" wide receiver or cornerback. We're talking about a pretty big human being already for a linebacker at almost 6'3.5", 6'4", and 215 to 220.
And you heard me say, put him in the C.J. Hicks boat, put him in the Sonny Styles boat, put him in the put him in even like the Cedric Works. These guys all have that 6'3", 6'4" profile, and they can all scoot. I mean, they're rare humans for where they're at. I mean, then I know we're going gorilla diamond into this time or whatever, but that's a subhuman time. I mean,
look, a 4.38. You not only have to be able to run, you got to be trained to run, because that's almost a track speed time. Now, if you're a 4.42 guy and you train for the combine and you spend the whole time working with a track guy and go 4.38, I buy that. But you're flying. All right, let's end with this, gentlemen. Can't let you get out of here without commenting on Ohio State hosting the Terps. Noon kickoff. Maryland undefeated, but not ranked. So I think that lets you know that the public is waiting for Maryland to trade punches with a legitimate team. Ohio State is that team. Mark, I'll let you go first. Your thoughts on Ohio State, Maryland this weekend?
Yeah, the bye week and the rest and everything, that spells trouble for Maryland. I think now you're starting to see real game plans out of Ohio State, a real effort to get their best guys the ball. I think you can cover the spread on this one. I think this one's going to be a little more and I've seen a lot of hype for the quarterback there, and but this is real speed coming at you, and you're going to have to really be special to handle this defense. I think the confidence from the Notre Dame win, I think it all starts to spiral for Ohio State, and you start to steal them. We're going to go on a little run here of wins.
Yeah, if you guys read The Boarding House yesterday, you know that a current NFL player that we speak to on a routine basis and he's obviously still devoted to his college, was quite happy that they got the week off and cited the fact that when JT and the boys led the comeback against Penn State, they were talking about that till Wednesday, and then they went to Iowa, and that did not go well. So the week off allowed them to clear their minds. Bill, your thoughts on the Turtles?
Well, I would say that I think the interest is more there now for this game than maybe 2 months ago.
Fair.
I don't think anybody was circling Ohio State, Maryland as undefeated teams playing each other at that point. Maybe there some were. But I talked to a parent of one of the Ohio State players earlier this week, and he said he's really looking forward to this game. He said, this is going to be an interesting one. And I thought, yeah, it's going to be more interesting than I thought a month or two ago for sure. I think Ohio State's still in good shape, and I don't expect any upset whatsoever. But I did look a little bit at what Maryland's done so far, and I think Ohio State, if I remember correctly, the score over Indiana was 23-3 Ohio State. Maryland beat them 44-17. So obviously Maryland has some players on the offensive side of the ball. But again, I think Ohio State's defense, as Mark mentioned, is going to be just fine. I think Ohio State is going to be in good shape. But the interest is a little higher than I at one point expected.
I'll leave you with this. Obviously, the quarterback in reference here is Tua Tagovailoa, the younger brother of Tua, who is thriving in Miami with the Dolphins. And Talia, this is actually his 4th year as a starter, the rare college 4-year starting quarterback these days. And I was talking to a source who lamented Ohio State's inability to get sacks and how that would be an issue. And I was thinking to myself, I just haven't seen really anybody in the Big Ten going off when it comes to edge presence or sacking the quarterback. So I went and looked it up. Through 5 games, the Big Ten leader in sacks has 2 sacks. So these teams have gone to across the board in the Big Ten, a more quick hitting offense where you don't sit in the pocket. If after 5 games, the number 1 guy in sacks in the entire league has 2 sacks, that lets you know this is not a conference where guys are getting a lot of them and the quarterbacks are sitting back there. Now, Talia is going to throw the ball a ton, and they are going to need to pressure him. But those days of big-time sack numbers, I'm afraid, may not be there. So we just got to go for the pressure. If they get that, I think they'll win.
I just thinking out loud again, I wonder how much the shorter games are going to affect statistics in a lot of categories throughout the year. If you're losing 3-4 offensive possessions a game, that means you're losing 3-4 defensive possessions times 10 games is 30-40 defensive possessions throughout a year. Wow. You could get 2 sacks on a series if you really had a great series. That's not improbable. But, as you're saying that, I wonder how much the shorter games are going to play a factor in, historical statistics from here on out. You just can't lose 3 or 4 possessions a game and think in times a season and think things are going to be the same. And I don't know if this is just a micro, analysis, but I think that's going to play out somewhere.
Yeah, and I don't think it helps Ohio State to have fewer possessions. You want as much time out there on the field to spread everyone as thin as possible so that Ohio State's depth can shine. But we shall see. We appreciate these guys stopping by. There's plenty of content coming from both of them. Keep it locked in here. Have a good